Welcome to Practical Wellness Radio. I'm your host, Ted, and today on the pod, my co-host Cody and I are joined by Jason Livermore, owner and master mixer of the Blasting Room in Fort Collins, Colorado. Jason knows a lot about music. He's been involved in it for over 30 years, pretty much his whole life from the sound of things. And he's also a guy that I got to know pretty well. Lifted a lot of weights together back when we were in Fort Collins. And if you listen to the episode or you already know my relationship with Jason, you know that we like to give each other a lot of crap. But I think it's one of those things where the people that you like the most, you kind of give the most shit to sometimes. So he's a good guy. And we used to always kind of have these kind of internal little lifting competitions. We were about in the same weight class, about the same strength. But the only difference is that he's about 15 to 18 years older than me, and so he should be pretty proud of how freaking strong he is. But just like every other episode, we kick today off with what we call our warm-up waves. And so again, this is for anybody who, may be listening to this on their way to the gym or while they're working out. Hopefully this can help you dial in your focus and have a great training session. Be by design and not by default. If you don't decide on who you are, what you want, and what you want to become, you're going to fall into default mode and be just like everyone else, which is one of my biggest fears. Make sure to take ownership of the direction of your life. And being great doesn't require permission from anyone. Before we get the show started, we want to just plug a few things here. At Practical Wellness, we are 1 month into the Practical Wellness Run Club, and things have been going really great. We've had a great turnout every week, and I can just tell you firsthand as a guy who would rather have a barbell in his hands than running shoes on his feet that I've actually really, really enjoyed the programmed workouts, the challenges, and there's just something kind of great and primal about just being outside and just running, one of the most simplest forms and practices of exercise. It's great to just continue to work at that and continue to, just dive in. And it's been pretty therapeutic for me too. So if you have any questions about Run Club, please feel free to shoot us an email at info@practicalwellnesscoach.com. Also, if you haven't reviewed, or subscribed to the show yet, we'd love to have you do that. And if you need any questions answered whatsoever, check us out at practicalwellnesscoach.com. Let's get the show started. We have our guy, Jason Livermore, Practical Wellness Radio, and we were just shooting the shit here before we started, and I was just showing these guys. They can see this because of our screen here, but I'm on the side of the road. My wife's folks have a cabin in Missouri. We were down there, and then we drove to Eureka Springs. We got here like literally just 5 minutes ago. And I just pulled over and pulled out my laptop, set up the hotspot on my phone, and we're recording. So hopefully this goes well. Hopefully it does.
Where's the family?
Technology.
Weren't they with you?
They were. I dropped them off downtown. So they just went to grab lunch and probably a coffee and play with the kids and all that stuff.
As long as you didn't just drop them off on the side of the road.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jason, thanks for jumping on with us, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
Jason said he got his 9 holes in already this morning. He's got better weather in Fort Collins.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Cody was saying this is our first ever tri-state podcast. So I'm in Arkansas, Cody's in Iowa, and Jason's in Colorado. So
setting records.
Yeah. So Jason, I knew Jason at the gym that I used to own. Got to know him decently well. We played some golf together. We shoot the shit together. We talk shit to each other. All the good things.
That's right. That's right. Ted tried to hang with me on the snatch for a while, but then he surpassed me.
Yeah. And then
because of your teachings, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Because I told him what to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of just do it. Just do it, man. Stop being a wuss. That's what he would tell me. That was his.
That's right.
That was his helpful tips. But and Jason owns the recording studio in Fort Collins, Colorado, called the Blasting Room, and this is a fitness podcast, so we'll talk maybe a little bit about. You were a collegiate swimmer.
I was, yeah.
Tell us, maybe we'll just start there, just kind of break the ice there. How'd you get into swimming of all sports?
Into swimming?
Yeah.
Well, I grew up in California, and everybody had a pool in their backyard, so
Yeah.
I swam forever. I played ice hockey and baseball and soccer and when I was a kid, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I went to high school, but they had a water polo team, and that sounded pretty cool. So I joined the water polo team, and our coach made us swim in the off season to keep in shape. And I did that for 3 years, and I really loved it. But then I ended up moving to Oregon from California, and they didn't have a water polo team, so I just swam and kind of got better at it and got good enough to where I got a scholarship to go to college. So that's what I did.
Yeah, that's cool. What were your events? What'd you swim?
I swam the 50, 100, and 200 freestyle. I made nationals my sophomore year, but I didn't get to go because I was a dumbass and tore my ACL skiing over winter break, which my coach was not very happy about.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And then, so you're as a sophomore. That's pretty cool to make nationals and be that competitive.
Yeah. I did pretty well.
Cody spent some time. Was it maybe Cody? You'll have to set it up better than I can. You were the strength and conditioning coach for a swim team in Iowa, right?
Yeah, so there's this local, it's called iFly. It's a local swim club in the area, and they had, kind of is a youth group. So they had high school athletes, and then they had, more juniors, so like middle school, and I think there's even maybe some younger than that. All the high schoolers, though, were at least on track to get scholarships to go to like a Big Ten school or something similar, D1 school. So yeah, I was fortunate to be able to do some of their dryland training for them. I would never do their swimming. Like, I cannot swim. So I respect anybody that can because it's so far out of my wheelhouse.
Oh, that's cool that you had that a team had a training. We did dry land and weights too, but it was kind of, I don't know how structured it was.
Yeah, well, what did it look like? I'm kind of just curious,
Oh, back then, we would do a lot of running. And we would do like a lot of like back strengthening, like doing Supermans, where you're on your stomach and stuff like that. And then we'd go to the gym. The gym was kind of on your own, and we only did it like once or twice a week. And I feel like I never, ever squatted or deadlifted. It was only bench press and shoulder stuff. Yeah, we definitely did not have any nutrition back then. Our coach, he was successful, but he was like 65. He would take us to McDonald's before meets and stuff,
Yeah.
And nobody thought any of the different of it. We were just trying to get calories in back then.
Yeah,
and,
When
then after
this?
it's like
kind of what time frame are we talking?
I graduated late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
So yeah, when I started doing CrossFit and got into paleo and the full nutrition and zone diet and all that stuff, I was like, holy crap! If I had done this when I was in college, oh man,
I think everybody's
it would be
I think everybody's kind of had that thought, like, man, where was this when I was 14 or 15 or 18?
I
or
know,
anything?
because you're like living off of McDonald's back then. And it's just like, wow.
Mm-hmm. So you're
I
probably
was a Taco John's guy.
Taco John's guy. Potato Lays, man, 6-pack and a pound.
Oh, yeah.
We would dominate those after football games in high school.
Yeah.
There'd be like 10 guys roll into a Taco John's, and we'd all get a 6-pack and a pound. They'd be like, oh, no. So you're probably 19, 20 when you tore your ACL?
I think I was 19. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Just
then
skiing, was it like a collision thing or?
No, like I'd go skiing with my dad a lot, and I like to go off jumps, so I went off a big, I don't know, it was like a 15 or 20 foot kind of cornice where you just straight down, and I landed and just kind of felt something. I didn't crash or anything. I was like, ow, skied down, got it checked out. They're like, no, nothing's broken. And I had screwed myself up so many times being a kid skateboarding or skiing or whatever. I was just like, this is fine. This will get better. And then it just kind of never got better. And finally, like a month, I went back to swimming and everything, and I knew something was wrong, but it wasn't like super wrong. And then about a month later, I was at a party, and I got super hammered. I jumped up on a table, and it went, and I was like, oh. That finished it. It's over.
Oh,
now it's
man.
gone. Yeah, gone.
There we go.
Yeah.
What a time to figure it out.
You,
Oh, yeah.
you've had.
That's
some
crazy how it can
neat-
kind of just linger and just, this kind of like nagging thing. And then all of a sudden, like you do something else and, jumping and landing, right? And then all of a sudden it just goes.
Then it's gone. Yeah, it must have been half gone. I don't know.
Yeah.
You've had some knee stuff, right? Like your knees have been put through the woodshed. It sounds like.
Well,
right?
I mean, that right knee that I had the ACL surgery on is the bad one. But I mean, both my knees are, I don't know, maybe just getting old. They just feel old.
Don't you have screws in your knees?
I got a screw in my right knee.
Okay.
Yeah, the one that I had surgery on.
Okay. That's crazy. It's gnarly. What was that? Just wear and tear? What did you need surgery on for that knee?
That was the ACL surgery.
I thought
yeah,
it was a separate issue.
But
Gotcha.
No, it's just the one. But the left doesn't feel that much better for
Gotcha.
whatever reason.
And then tell me. So you swam, and then tell me what did post college life look like? And eventually we're going to get to it, right? And you own the recording studio, as we said, in Fort Collins.
Yeah.
How did you make that segue? How did you? I mean, just from conversations you and I had, but Cody might not know. Anybody listening might not know. Like, where did you get into music and recording, and how did that all start?
I started playing the drums and the bass when I was maybe in 5th or 6th grade, and started some bands with like neighborhood kids, like in early high school. So I've been into it since then. And then in college, it wasn't a serious band, but we were like more of a band, and we went to a recording studio. And when we went to the recording studio, and I was kind of like, whoa, what is this place? This is awesome, And my buddy was like, oh, I have a 4-track. I'm like, what's a 4-track? He goes, oh, it's like a little home studio version of what we just did. And I was like, oh, cool. So he gave it to me, and I'm in college then, and I bought a book about how to record. And so I would record the band that I was in then. And I never thought of it as a career path or anything, but after college, I was selling beer for Miller Brands. It was a decent job, but everybody there was about 40, when I was 22. And I was like, I don't think so. I can't end up here.
Yeah.
So a guy that I was working with who was managing our band, he also managed a band called All and the Descendants, and they got a big recording deal, and they were going to build a recording studio in Colorado. And he's like, I'm going to move out there. You should move out there with me. And I was like, cool. That sounds great, So I quit my job and moved out, and just basically kind of just wung it. Just learned through 10,000 hours of trial and error, basically. So that's how I kind of got into the studio. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever knew that. That's what brought you out to Colorado. That's cool.
Yeah, it was the studio. Yeah, I didn't want to be like a guy who wore a suit and tie.
Yeah.
Essentially, So I was like, I'm gonna do this now, and it happened to work out.
What kind of music were you playing when, you were in high school or even younger, and then even into college? Did it change? Did it fluctuate? Did that taste
It changed.
adjust?
Yeah. So in high school, I was in a punk rock band. And then in college, it was more like we would do covers of like popular bands at the time. And the stuff that we did was kind of like one of our members used to be in this weird metal funk hybrid band called Mr. Bungle. And the singer of that band went on to sing for Faith No More. So we were kind of like trying to emulate that band style, this weird funk, metal, ska hybrid thing. And then after I moved here, I got kind of back into a punk rock band that I played in for probably 5 years after that.
Yeah. When you were playing mostly drums? Bass?
Yeah, I play drums. That's my main instrument.
Okay.
When you guys were, you said you tried to emulate some bands, and you also did some covers maybe in college. What were some bands that you enjoyed covering? And I know that maybe like covers kind of get this weird stigma sometimes, right? But like what was
No, we like to cover like the Pixies.
Yeah.
We covered the Rolling Stones, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. We covered the Beastie Boys. We covered.
gnarly.
It was just kind of like a wide variety. Playing to college crowds.
Would the covers change based off of like the potential crowd that you're playing to?
Yeah, for sure. Like the Rolling Stones and stuff we do when you play at a bar and you had no idea who like what, and
People
then
pleasers, Rolling Stones.
Yeah, people pleasers. Yeah, and we started writing our own songs and throwing those in there till we had enough to actually be a band,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of quit playing covers and just started playing our own music.
Tell us, so I don't, and this is not what you're doing today, but like back when you were in a band, Cody and I think Cody can play a couple instruments. I'm not musically gifted at all. When you guys were writing your own songs, like do you remember what that was like? Was that fun at that time, or was that kind of stressful? I mean, I'm sure you're probably excited. And yeah.
No, it's totally fun. It only becomes stressful when you're trying to rely on it for your living.
Yeah.
That's what I tell all bands. I'm like, just play music for fun. Don't try to become popular. Don't try to make money. Like, it's going to ruin it and you're going to want to quit. Like, you know what I mean? And the music's going to be better for it if you're just actually enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
People can hear that. You can turn the radio on and go, oh, somebody in Nashville wrote this song for that guy. This, like they all sound the same.
Yeah, you can tell.
It is.
But yeah, writing the song, back to your question, it's fun. You just, you get in a room and jam. Oh, that part's cool. Let's play that, and then, oh, I've got this other part. Oh, let's put them together. Oh, that works. Oh, no, that doesn't work. It's just,
Yeah, like
you get better as you go on, but
yeah. So I took a lot of journalism classes, and when it comes to like being wordsmith, I kind of can wrap my head around that, like how to put words together, how to maybe put lyrics even together. The idea to like take an instrument and take another instrument and put it all together it just blows my mind. Just blows my mind.
my headphones cut out on me for half a second. I got the last part of what you just said.
Yeah. And then, so how, what was it first like when you moved to Fort Collins and you're recording, what was life like then? You're recording at the recording studio. Was it called the Blasting Room at the time?
Yeah, it was always called the Blasting Room. When we first started it, it was basically just so the band who started it back then all had a spot to make their own records. So there was no, it wasn't professional at all. But immediately after opening, we did have a lot of bands that wanted to come, and so we kind of grew like that. But we weren't there 24/7 because half the year we'd be touring. I was a monitor engineer for their live show, so I would be gone with the band for the first couple of years, and when we'd come back, we would make records. But eventually, I started getting better at making records, and Bill, who was the owner, was like, "Why don't you stay home and not do this tour and record this band, and we'll go out on tour." So I kind of started staying home instead of going on the road, and that's kind of when I started learning more, doing stuff on my own and whatnot.
Yeah.
What's a monitor engineer do?
So when you're playing live, the band needs to hear themselves, right? So back when I started, you would have speakers on the floor, and that's like what you'd hear the other members of the band. Like if you were the drummer, you couldn't hear the singer unless they put his voice through the speaker on the floor. And there's a guy who does kind of the same thing that like the crowd has to hear what's going on and he's in control. There's a guy on the side of the stage who does that for the musicians.
Oh, I see.
So like you could be the drummer and look at the guy on the side and go, I need more vocal. I can't hear the vocal. Or, I need less bass. He's too loud or whatever, because it's not like in the practice room where you may be in a little circle and you've set everything up perfectly to hear each other. Live, it's a different thing. But now when you see people play, like they'll all have in-ears. Mm-hmm. So that's the same thing. They're listening to the other members of the band through their headphones, but generally there's somebody who controls those headphones.
I see.
That's the monitor engineer.
Yeah, I've fiddled around. I played drums in high school. I was on like the drum line and did all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then dabbled in guitar. I have my old guitar right over here. I haven't touched for a while. But I've never obviously been in that particular position to play on stage and to understand that. But we always probably see like the
you see it all,
and
you see it, but like unless you know what they're doing, you're like, what's
just part of the
don't
my
think
assumption
about
was
it.
It was always towards the person that we're hearing, in terms of the crowd. So I didn't know there was another person in the back for.
Generally there's like at bigger shows, there's a guy on the side, so the guy who's in the front doesn't have to worry about doing two jobs.
Sure.
But if it's like a little show at like a little club, you may end up doing both.
I'm sure that's tough too.
Yeah, it makes it trickier.
Both,
Yeah.
Absolutely. How many like, I don't know how to ask this question. How many like bands come through the studio like in a given year, or like what's the frequency of that? Because I'm sure it takes a while to, cut a record.
Yeah. I would say prior to the last 5 years, before the music industry sort of changed to how it is now, I was doing about 8 records a year, maybe, and they would average about 21 days. And we had a little system where we would divvy the work out amongst the people that were here to do certain jobs to get it done in that amount of time. The recording hasn't changed per se, but the way it goes about has changed because of the recording industry doesn't have nearly as much money as it used to. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people end up doing stuff themselves at home, and they may send it to me when they're finished. And so I may not record any of it, or I may record just like something that's difficult for someone to record at home, like a drum set. I might just record the drums, and then they'll go home and do the vocals and guitars and bring it back. So records are probably, it's hard to say. I don't think they're getting shorter in time, but they're just getting recorded in different locations
Is the
over a
turnaround
longer
faster for that?
Oh, not necessarily, because maybe the quality's going to go down when you don't have like a pro involved.
Takes more work post
over the whole thing. Like, like let's say I did the whole record myself. When I went to go mix it, I'd be like, it sounds great already. I don't have to do much. Mm-hmm. And so the mixing might not take as long. But if you did your vocals and your guitar at home, I might get it and go, oh God, this sounds horrible. I have to fix all this. And it may take me days to figure out how to take what you've given me and make it presentable in some, like fixing the vocal, the tuning.
Is there like ever a moment where you send it back? You're like, I can't do anything with this, or is it always like workable?
Generally, everything's workable. It just depends on how hard you want to try. It's better to send it back if it's really, really bad. But there's so many tools now, with the exception of something like a really poorly, like a guitar that's really far out of tune or something. You can't really fix that.
I would guess the assumption would be that most of the time, since these are bands that you're working with, like they have their own equipment, that it's usually pretty good, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're probably not going to record someone so bad, at least in my position, where I'm like, this is horrible, because I get a lot of, bigger bands who can actually play. Solid bands. So I'm not in that position as much as just like Joe Schmo who's recording like high school bands or whatever.
Why are they recording more at home? Is it financially better for them? They don't have to record.
It's the money.
Space.
Yeah. It's the money. Like there used to be, I mean, we could get paid upper end of like $250,000 to make an album. Like, that wasn't always the case, but now it's like that same band, their label may gave him $20,000, where they got like $250,000 before. And so they're just like, we can't afford it. We don't have the money. And that's why you see a lot of bands doing Kickstarters like on their own, like, hey, we're going to make an album. Please help us pay for it.
Exactly. Has that financially like kind of hit your business a little bit in the last 5 years? You don't have to go into all the details, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure it has.
I mean, it's actually, it hasn't hit it as much as I would have expected, because my business has sort of changed from like, so I do less recording, but I do more mixing, which is the process at the end, because most people can't finish it. So I get more like the finishing job than I used to. Yeah. So I'm just sort of changing hats, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Is this from, what's the reason for this in the last 5 years? Is it just the streaming age? Is that kind of the big thing?
Yeah, streaming. Like, there's way, way less physical medium. So,
hey, Jason,
like, nobody's...
will you lean in a little bit more to your mic? We can't quite hear it. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yes, no problem. So the streaming aspect of it has... So nobody buys CDs. I myself used to go to, like, let's say Best Buy or something and buy 10 CDs a month, just as a matter of principle to support the industry, And then one day I walked in and there was one row of CDs at Best Buy, and I'm like, I guess I'm not buying CDs anymore,
Yeah.
And so now I signed up for Apple Music, and that's what I do. I just listen to whatever I can. It's amazing for the listener. It's amazing for music
Consumer.
in general.
Yeah.
The consumer, it's amazing for that, but it's not amazing for the artist.
Right.
So they have to make all their money from touring, whereas they would make a lot of money from record sales in the past. And that's really the big thing. And so the record labels aren't as willing to put the money in to make the record as they used to be.
Do you feel like vinyl's hitting a new step?
Vinyl's definitely hitting a new step. Everybody's doing vinyl now where they weren't doing it 10 years ago. And that's part of the thing. Like, nobody's buying CDs, but it's super cool to have a big vinyl in your hand and look at the pictures and read the words and all that.
Because I find
figure
myself
out what's
buying
going on.
vinyls too.
Yeah, vinyl's cool. It sounds different than a CD a little bit, so you have that. And it's more of like, let's call it an experience where you have to sit down and sort of dedicate yourself to listening. So it's not so ADD, like, skip that song, that song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's active listening, right?
It's active listening. So that's super cool. But yeah, people like to sell vinyl because it's like a tangible thing that you can hold.
Yeah. Yeah. I always find that kind of interesting, or how, like, even things kind of circle back a little bit too. Do you think, and this is maybe a silly question, but do you think CDs will kind of do the same thing like vinyls did?
It's hard to say. People are starting to print cassettes again, which sounds
Really?
super. Oh, I'm not kidding. Like, so I can't rule out CDs. I mean, CDs are a great medium. They sound great. They're portable. Like, it's not. I don't know. It's not streaming, but who knows
It's
what's
tough
going to
to
happen.
beat. I mean, you're right. It is great for the consumer. It's tough to be able to like beat having it on my phone, plug it into my truck, and just listen
Exactly.
to it.
I used to be like, what 10 albums do I want to put on my iPod or whatever?
Yeah.
Now it's like, I don't have to choose anything. Hey, Siri. Well,
Exactly.
My phone's going to pick up right now.
You'd buy like a newer car, in the 2000s, and it had like the 5-disc changer.
Oh, yeah.
Which one do I want? And then you'd select. I remember that. Like,
And especially if it was in the trunk, right?
yeah.
It was in the trunk. Then you really had to get dedicated.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I had that set up, man. I had a 92 S10 Blazer, 2-door. Of course, 2 12-inch subwoofers in the back with 10 CD changer, and I had like built myself slots so I could like keep all the CDs that weren't in the CD changer.
Wait, was that just like OJ's or was it different?
No,
Was it white?
he had a Bronco, man.
He had a Bronco. Oh, shit. Oh, okay.
But yeah, other than that, pretty similar. No, I wasn't. No getaway chases in the S10 Blazer. But that was me, and I was 17 at the time, and I was like, I'm gonna deck this sucker out, and it's gonna be so loud and obnoxious to everybody that I drive up next to.
Oh yeah.
Do you find yourself when you listen to music, are you like, do you notice things that you would have done different? And I remember I think your title, you're a master mixer, right? Is that your title?
Yeah, I do a lot of different stuff, but I'm mostly master
Sounds like
records
a
now.
Jedi thing, but yeah.
It is. It is. Usually you got to be an old guy like me to do mastering.
But do you find, like, if you're just listening to music, you're like, man, I would have done that a little different. Like, do you notice those things, or do you appreciate what other people do? And
both. Like, so if the song is really good, I kind of don't care how it sounds, which is weird, right? But if the song's that good, you just forget about the way it sounds, unless it's so bad that you're like, oh my God. But there's a lot of cool songs that don't sound very good. But then on the converse, if the song's not great, it has to sound really good to draw you in, because I listen to stuff sometimes just for work where I'm like, I hate this song, but it sounds so good. How did this guy do this? Like,
so you're studying
I could be studying. And then also, like, you're saying, like, some bands you're like, why did they record that snare drum? That is the worst sounding snare drum. Like, let's take Metallica, Saint Anger, or, a lot of Red Hot Chili Peppers. I hate the snare drum sound. I like the band. I don't like Anthony's voice too much sometimes, but, so there's things about it that I'm like, some of it's great, some of it I hate, I would have changed,
Yeah, that's cool. And I actually, you kind of started there, but that was my next question is, can you give us an example of maybe like a song that, 90% of the people would maybe know, and maybe it's a good song and it kind of ended up working because it was a good song, but you didn't appreciate kind of like you were saying with Saint Anger and Metallica. Like, is there another situation or another song that you can just think of that Led Zeppelin, whatever it is?
Well, so I work with a band called the Flowbots, and they had a hit song called Handlebars.
Yeah.
Right? It sold over 1 million copies. They recorded that song in a tough shed. Literally, a tough shed.
Really?
Like, they did it themselves with another guy, not a recording studio, and the song does not sound that good, but it sold 1 million copies.
It was unique. Yeah.
It's a unique song. It's basically, it's a lot of times, like, people will get used to a certain sound. The radio is totally homogenized. Everything sounds the same. Somebody comes on, and you're like, whoa, what's this? This sounds different, you know? It could sound different bad, but maybe that's why, you know, it got your attention. So it's hard to say. Like,
yeah. No, that is true. Whether it's good or bad, you're like, that's weird. That's different.
That's weird.
You turn
That's
it up.
weird.
You want to check it out. Yeah.
You want to, exactly.
Well, that's cool. And then, so how long have you? So how long have you been recording? I mean, that's a simple question, right? You're an old guy. I always give you shit for being older than me, but anyway, you can just.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, no, and that wasn't the mean way of me asking how old you are, but just tell everybody how long you've been doing this.
So I moved here to Fort Collins in '94, and I started, like, let's say professionally in '94. I had recorded for maybe 2 years, sort of home style before that. So what is that? 30 years? 30 years maybe?
Cool. That's awesome. That's cool. There's not many people that do anything for 30 years, let alone can make a career out of, you know, mixing and recording bands. It's cool.
Yeah, I'm totally fortunate that I'm still doing this, you know, and getting paid enough to live off.
Getting paid is always important too.
Getting paid comfortably, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great, man. Let's switch gears up a little bit. So Jason Livermore is one of the few guys, maybe like the 8 people that I know in my life who've been doing CrossFit longer than I have. And so tell us how you got, you know, what did fitness look like when you weren't a collegiate swimmer anymore? How did you get into maybe CrossFit? What did your fitness look like before CrossFit? What's that story?
Yeah, okay, so after college, I got into kind of running and just, you know, bench press, you know, the shit that people do who are not into CrossFit. Like, I did that probably until I was like 30-ish. And that's when my recording career started to really take off. And I just was working like 80 hours a week. And I did not do any sort of exercising at all for probably 8 years. And I gained a lot of weight and got really out of shape. And at a certain point, my dad, he took me out to lunch one day and he goes, look, dude, you got to get your shit together. Like, you know, because he was a college athlete. He was a college football player and track and discus, and he did Olympic weightlifting.
That's right.
And he's never been fat his whole life. And he was like, no, this isn't going to fly. And I was like, oh God, my dad's calling me out. I got to figure it out. So I was basically like, okay, I'm going to lose weight. So I joined 24-Hour Fitness. I think this was in like 2008. And I lost like 40 pounds the first 3 months. And then I had like a shitload of energy. You know, I went from 210 to 160 or something. Yeah. I was like good to go. And it was getting a little bit boring for me just doing the Stairmaster bench press and whatnot. So I had found that Spartan workout, the 300 Spartan workout, because that movie had just come out. And so I had to go, oh, cool. It was in Men's Fitness, I think. Mm-hmm. So I had tried to do it. I did it like 10 times. And I didn't know what intensity was, so I wasn't going fast.
You're just doing
I think
it,
the best time I got maybe was like 32 minutes or something. I think I started at like 50 minutes. But then I started getting better at that, and I went to it was like a health and wellness fair in Fort Collins, and they had Chris Brown, the original owner. He had a booth there, and a couple of the coaches, they had a rowing machine and they had kettlebells, and I was like, oh, I've been doing kettlebells. Oh, that's cool. What are you guys doing? You know, and kind of went over and talked to them. And so that's when I started. I started in, I think, September of 2009.
Yeah.
And just, loved it because it was like, I'm competitive. I was, competitive swimmer. I was just like, oh, this is it. I'm going to beat all these people kind of thing,
Yeah.
And then I went and redid the Spartan workout 2 or 3 months after I had joined, and I got it down to 14 minutes. I was like, yes.
Oh, wow,
That's
that's
cool.
a huge difference.
Yeah.
From 15 minutes to 14.
Yeah, because you learn what intensity is, I was like,
you adapt to the
plus back then I wasn't doing kipping pull-ups because it starts and ends with 25 pull-ups sandwiched in the middle of a bunch of stuff. So it's not easy to do 25 strict pull-ups.
No, not at all. I don't think I ever heard the story of you being chubby before CrossFit, so that was interesting to me.
No, I was definitely chubby. I'm probably the same weight now, but I'm like a hell of a lot stronger than I was then.
Yeah. And so the story that I knew is Jason Livermore started CrossFit, really loved it, pretty competitive, did pretty well at it. And then you got to a point where you were frustrated that you weren't stronger, right? And so then you got into Olympic weightlifting, you got into a strength cycle. And I'll let you tell the story, but yeah, so what did that look like?
So,
how far were you into maybe CrossFit before you started like this dabble into Olympic weightlifting? Yeah,
so I think it was probably a year and a half. I started, if there was a lift, like let's say, is it called DT or JT? The one that's got the 155 pound
DT, yeah, right. Yeah.
DT. Yeah. If I had that would ruin my life, But if it was just like Cindy, I could do 22 rounds of Cindy. So I was like, I need to quit doing all this other stuff. I need to go strong. Mm-hmm. So I did a couple of these Wendler cycles with just less Metcons and got a lot stronger. And then I don't exactly remember who it was. It might have been Jeff, who was like, we should start Olympic weightlifting. And I'm like, cool, let's do it. So he started a little barbell club, and there was a handful of us, 8 people maybe. And so we would do mostly Olympic stuff, but we were still doing Metcons. And we did that for maybe a year like that. And finally Jeff was like, you know what? Metcons are stupid. Like if you really want to get strong, like we're not doing Metcons anymore. I'm like, let's go for it. I don't care. So I think when I started, I could snatch like 125 maybe. And then my best snatch when I ended was 242.
Yeah. It's awesome.
And I think my best clean and jerk when I started was maybe 185, and I ended up with like 292. I jerked and cleaned 300, but never put them together.
I know. I was there for a lot of those frustrations, to put it like.
Yeah, the frustrations. Be like, you clean 300, do it.
Yeah.
And
yeah. You and I were, we were kind of right
we
there.
We were close at a point, like, yeah.
Yeah, your mic's kind of fading in and out again, Jason. I don't necessarily know if it's bad connection
sorry,
or what.
Yeah, you cut out.
Can you hear me fine?
Am I back? I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, so Jason and I, we were kind of always neck and neck, and we were lifting a lot of the same weights. Both felt like we were decently strong. The difference was I was 30 and you were 45. So you should feel good about that, right?
Well, you were doing a lot more Metcons though, so you were probably sore as hell all the time.
But we were both right there. Like, we'd do a heavy day, and Jason would try to, he'd hit the clean but miss the jerk on 300. I couldn't clean it, but then we'd go over to the jerk blocks and I could jerk it, and then 2 weeks later, Jason would jerk 300 pounds, and we're both like, damn, we're so bleeping close, and
so close.
It's just off in the horizon, and we couldn't get to it, and that's.
You got it though. What'd you get? Like 305?
Yep, I did.
Did you go heavier than that?
305 is the most I ever done, and I don't think I've ever done.
But you did that a few times though. I think you've done 305 or at least 302 a couple times.
Yeah, there was a weird mix-up there one time where I had one of the kilo plates on one side and a 20. So I had a 22.
You thought you had 305?
Yeah. So I had. For those that might not know, we had some kilo plates. Olympic weightlifting, competitions are done in kilos. So we had some kilo plates and then some pound plates. And I had the 10 kilo and the 25 pound look almost identical, but one's 22 pounds and one's 25 pounds. So I had one on one side, and I don't know how they got mixed in. But I was like, finally, 305. Hell yeah. And I went and we had a PR board. I went and wrote it on the board, 305. So stoked, and then I'm like taking my weights and putting them away. And I set the 25 on top of the 25s where they go. And I'm like, I look down and it says 10 kilos, 22 pounds. I was like, mother. and so I go, you have to go over to the board and you have to erase the 5.
302.
302. Yeah. Still cool. Still proud of it. But yeah.
Yeah.
It was like it's like having to give money back that you won. It was like,
right. Good times.
But yeah. And
Jason,
then,
did you ever hit a meet?
I did maybe like 10 meets, I think.
Oh, 10. Wow.
I would go to like two a year, and I did it for about 5 years.
That's impressive. That's a lot.
There was a Masters Nationals that I always would tell myself I should go to Masters Nationals, because if I got my best lift, I probably would have placed second place in Masters Nationals. But it was always in like some weird spot, and it's like a week long, and I would have to take work off, and I was like, I don't know, do I care that much? I mean, I wanted to, but I never did.
Tough. Yeah, it's tough.
I never went to Masters Nationals.
Pan Ams are going on right now.
Yeah. Maddie set an Olympic record.
Yeah, I saw that.
Or not Olympic record, American record.
American
Pan
record.
Am.
Pan Am. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
2 pounds more than I could ever snatch.
it's crazy, right? Yeah. And she went up in a weight class this year.
Yeah, is it 85s or 84s they are?
Yeah, I can't remember
Or
exactly.
maybe
80 something.
It's 80 something.
Is it
Yeah,
81s?
81,
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so when we're recording this, the Pan Am's American weightlifting, or I guess Pan Am's are going on right now, Olympic weightlifting, and CJ Cummings set a huge record too, right?
Give it a sec. It's that side of the road
Oh, I must be fading out.
connection.
It's the hot spot.
Hot
He is,
spot.
yeah.
Yeah.
I see him.
I know,
Anyway,
he's
is this better?
Oh.
Technical difficulties. This is what happens, I guess.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, really?
What did CJ get?
Yeah, I'll have to look it up here again. I was going to look it up, and then I think that's what froze me, so we'll have to check it out maybe after we get off.
Don't
But,
touch your phone.
yeah, I can't
Yeah.
touch my phone.
I'll
But
do
yeah,
it. If you need anything looked up, I'll do it.
but you can check it out. We need to talk. Why does he keep doing this little push jerk? Can he not split jerk? I mean, I know he's been doing that for a couple years, and for people that don't know, they're probably not that interested in this, but he's the strongest freaking pound for pound person who's
Oh my
maybe
God.
ever walked to the earth, right? Like
He doesn't squat jerk. He just like looks like he does a push press.
Yeah, so he squat. So he missed his final jerk. He missed his final jerk. Squat cleaned it. He had to work for the squat, and then he did try to ride it down into a squat jerk, but then he missed.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. So
wow.
but you're right. The first 2 clean and jerks, he just kind of push pressed, and it's I don't know. I'm not around Olympic weightlifting as much, so I'm not the diehard fan that I used to be.
Yeah, I'm not either.
When we were in the gym and we're, shooting the shit and talking about it, you follow it a little bit closer. But so then you were doing exclusively Olympic weightlifting for about 5 years. It sounded like.
Yep.
And I was at the gym too at this time, and you would come in, you do your little weightlifting stuff around 9 a.m. and we had a kind of we'd move the old guy Jason Livermore into the corner and make him lift his weights, and we'd have a class going on the side, and then there started to be like a group of guys kind of your age, and I think like you're maybe like, I'm just tired of banging my head into a barbell. Tell us about that story, right? Like you eventually kind of came back and did more Metcons, and I don't know if you ever really loved it that much, but
No, I still don't. So I'm still working out at the gym, but not as much as I used to. And if there's a strength day, like Dave's gonna win because Dave's superhuman.
yeah,
but
we got a strong guy at the gym.
I'll get second place.
Yeah.
You're right. Or first if Dave doesn't show up. but when it comes to the Metcon, I am dead last. It's like people are going, "What's going on, dude? You're not trying." I'm like, "No, man. I am 50 years old and I can't breathe." So I don't. The Metcons are just not. They're not terribly enjoyable for me. Partially because I used to be good at them, and I'm not good anymore. So it's the drive is gone a little bit, but I think I switched over when I had a crew. I would lift with you and Pat and Coleman, and there was other guys that I lifted with in the past who were actually going to meets with me and stuff, and I just kind of outlasted them all. and then it was just me by myself. And I don't, if you've ever been an Olympic weightlifter, it is not easy to do by yourself. Like you have to put in the mental and physical effort to do this. And so if you're doing it day in, day out, you feel like you got hit by a truck, your back hurts, your knees hurt, you feel like you need to take a nap every afternoon. I was like, I don't know, man. I did what I could, and nobody's there to do it with me. Maybe I should go join. I want to be part of the other guy. I want to talk to some people,
You're looking across the room at everyone else, like laughing and sweating together, and you're just on your platform by yourself. Like, oh man, that looks so fun.
It was. I remember the conversation. I remember like maybe it was like your third day of like just kind of giving up on Olympic weightlifting and back to doing like the group fitness class. And you were like, yeah, man, I was weightlifting, and one day I looked around and I was the only one in there. It's like everybody else left and everybody else came up on it. It is a tough sport. Yeah. And it's one of those you definitely have to just kind of dig your heels in and lean into the hailstorm and just kind of. It's funny, it's like, they're always like, oh, be an athlete, they say, be strong, they say, lift heavy, and then you're like, yeah, but it's still hard work, it's still hard freaking work, and it wears on you, unless it's definitely not. It is kind of a young man's game, but you stuck it out. You did.
I stuck it out. If you see gains, if you're still seeing gains, that's what keeps you going.
Oh yeah.
Like they're like, I have more in me, I can do better. But once you hit a plateau, you really have to work something out, your diet or your supplements or your mental, like all of it, and you get to a spot and you just got to go, is this worth it?
Yeah. And I'll tell a quick story.
To do more to get like that extra pound or kilo?
Oh yeah.
Because at a certain point we all kind of hit that ceiling, based off of our genetics or our age or our time or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I remember too. So I maybe like one of the first. So I do you remember the squat program that I put you on, right? So I put you on that high volume squat program, and it was a lot of squatting, but everything else was just kind of like technique work for the Olympic lifts. We did some pulls, we did some like sled work. I think it was during the summer, so we got outside so Cody, I put Jason on. We do like. It's probably 12 weeks long. And again, if somebody's listening to this and they're not into fitness. It was
squat every day.
Yeah.
Right?
No, we didn't squat every day. So we did.
Didn't we squat every day?
We did that also. That was a separate program, I think. But
so many programs.
Yeah. But so the fitness nerds that like programming and whatever, they'll maybe find this interesting. If you don't, nobody else probably finds this interesting. But Cody, so every Monday, Jason, and it started with a 10 rep max. Jason would build to a 10 rep max. And then he had some, that was the main focus of the program. And we did 3 weeks of 10 rep maxes. But the Friday following the Monday, you would do a 3x10 at 90% of that 10 rep max. Right? And we did that for 3 weeks. And then we did deload. And then we do 3 weeks of an 8 rep max. And then 3x8 of that 8 rep max on Friday. Right? And then we did deload. And then we did 5. And then we did a 3. And then we did a 1. And so we have. You're probably 48 at the time, 47.
48, maybe. Yeah, something like that.
And Jason, at the end of the program, on his back, he had 450 pounds. Yeah. Squatted it down and couldn't quite stand it up. But, 47-year-old who's been into fitness his entire life pretty much, getting ready to PR, right? And that's fun. And
that's cool.
PR?
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time. I never
powerful.
Yeah, I didn't squat when I was a kid. I wasn't on the football team, so it wasn't like part of my thing.
Swimmers want skinny legs.
Yeah, maybe they don't anymore. I don't know, but they didn't. Either. They didn't back then. Yeah,
I think that's powerful. I think putting as much weight as you've ever put on your back at 45, that's impressive. I think, and I don't know whoever's listening to this. I think that can be a nice maybe motivator of like, hey, like it doesn't stop. Like you're not past your. Maybe you're technically like physiologically past your prime, but that's no reason to not.
I don't think.
Hit it hard,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the number is when you can't gain muscle, as much muscle. I feel like if you have a base, for me, strength is way easier to maintain and be heavy at an older age than like the Metcons, like than the breathing stuff. Like I remember when I was a kid, my dad would always tell me, every year past 40, you're going to lose like, 0.75% of your oxygen capacity. Like, cause he was an engineer. So he was like all about the numbers. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, Dad, like, and it shit you not. It's not like when I hit 45, it was kind of like, this is getting hard. The weightlifting didn't get hard. Like, I feel like you could probably be strong into your 60s, know?
Yes. Well, especially if you already had that adaptation. And I think what I don't know much
about the breathing's different. Yeah.
Cardiorespiratory like adaptation and how that lasts. I know like at about 25, at least for males, you start to lose your peak power in terms of like that ceiling. It doesn't mean you can't get better, right? I think that's the asterisk here. And then strength adaptations and your ability to produce like overall force or absolute force stays quite high. Yeah, like into your 30s. And I think
it seems like it.
In your 40s. But again, doesn't mean you can't get better. Right. Just means
because even still, like when I go to the gym, I don't like squat like a maniac anymore at all. It's like, once a month, if that. And when I do, I'm still like, oh, wow, I did 5 at 350. Oh, that's cool. I'm still strong,
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, you're still strong. And I think that's important to recognize too, is like, do you have to throw 400 pounds on your back every day to keep that? Probably not.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Like I'd almost say almost 100% of people would agree that if you're squatting, 350, you're just a strong dude.
Yeah.
You're fine. You're good. What am I going to do in life that needs that?
That needs more than that. Yeah.
I always say, take it out of the oven. It's cooked. You're done. You're good. Yeah. You don't need to get, like fine. The casserole is cooked. You don't need to get any stronger. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. At a certain point, you're just like wasting time.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. Before we kind of wrap things up here, we want to talk quick about, we always close out the show with some closeout questions. We got 8 closeout questions for you today, Jason. We'll hit those in just a second. But before the Blasting Room in Fort Collins has a documentary coming out at some point, I understand, right? They've been working.
At some point, it's going to come out, and I don't know the date that it's going to be completed. It was supposed to be, it started pre-COVID, so we thought it was going to be done, and basically, COVID happened and the world went to shit, and here we are still waiting on it. But it's like, I hope it's not more than 6 months from now. Who knows? I'm not sure though. I'm not sure.
What inspired that? Did somebody reach out to you guys? Where did that? Tell us about that.
So there's a guy in Fort Collins who's been coming to the studio for the last 20 years and filming bands that come in, and he filmed a lot of stuff for Rise Against when they would come in. So he has had tons and tons and tons of footage. So we had him sort of like going, hey, we should do something. But also, like, last year was our 25th anniversary. And so we put on a really big show and like kind of a party for our 25th anniversary. And that was sort of like hey, let's do a documentary that sort of ties in with that show. And then COVID happened. But that was sort of the way it kind of started. Yeah,
I got you. And then, so you never know who's listening to these, who might tune in and check these out. If anybody wants to check into the Blasting Room, that's my vehicle is beeping here. If anybody wants to check out the Blasting Room, you guys have a website. What's a good way to maybe reach out to you?
blastingroomstudios.com.
Perfect. Cool. Well, thanks again, man. Here we go. Cody's going to hit you with the first closeout question here.
What's the best live show that you've ever, attended or seen?
Okay, this will sound totally lame, but I think it's Depeche Mode at Red Rocks. I went with my wife, and since I know people, we got second row, and seeing a show at Red Rocks is amazing. And I used to listen to them in high school, and it's like one of her favorite bands, so it was amazing.
You broke up there for a second. What band was it?
No, it was Depeche Mode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't the best show I ever saw, and I just hate admitting this, but I think I did tell you this, Jason, at one point. One of the cooler shows I've ever seen was, God, I can't even believe I'm admitting this, is I saw Ed Sheeran. My in-laws my father-in-law bought tickets for my wife and her sister, and I think maybe both sisters. But he's like, "Dude, we need a guy to go with them." And I was like, "Yeah, Ed Sheeran, I suppose I'll go watch him." And and I'm like one of, there's 12,000 people in this venue, and I'm one of 12 other guys in the venue at the time. But at the end, man, I was like,
such odds. So think of the odds.
This little British dude can sing, man. This was fun, and it was cool. So anyway, that's the
I got a second one, so I just thought of
yeah.
Jane's Addiction. Jane's Addiction back in 1991, like at Lollapalooza. That was amazing. Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah, that was a great show.
We lost your mic there again. You said Addiction?
Jeez. Jane's Addiction.
Jane's Addiction. Oh, yeah. Jane's Addiction would be cool. Yeah.
Jane's Addiction.
Yeah. That's a band I haven't really checked in on a while. And maybe you're like me too. I always joke. I feel like music for me in my head is like a parking lot. And so I only have so much space. And it's like
so many spaces. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I'll hear like a new band and I kind of get into them and I listen to them. And then I'm like 5 years go by and what used to be one of my favorite band I haven't listened to in 5 years. Like there's just only so much time to listen to stuff, and there's a lot of great stuff out there. But number 2, what's your favorite Mexican dish?
Oh, street tacos.
Street tacos. What's in these street tacos? Al Pastor?
El Pastor.
Oh, yeah.
El Pastor is my favorite.
With the
Is
little
there a specific place in Fort Collins?
There's a place called La Buena Vida in town that does them pretty good. I did a record in Mexico City, and I spent like a month down there. And so we would go to the street vendors like every night after the studio, and just fell in love with those things. Yeah,
street tacos are great because if you're like, oh, I'm kind of hungry, you get like 2 of them. Or if you're starving,
12
you get
of them.
If you're really hungry, you get 10 of them.
Yeah.
El Pastor with some fresh onions and cilantro in there is
some pineapple. Yeah, it's awesome.
All right. Do you have a dream car, and what is it?
Dream car. Jeez, that's tough. Maybe like an RS7, an Audi RS7's pretty appealing to me. I've got an A6 right now. I mean, a Tesla might be nice too, but that's not. That's an obtainable dream, right?
Yeah. Was there ever a backup career plan for if the recording studio didn't work out when you moved out to Colorado, where you're like, I might have to do this, or what was your So
there was no backup in my mind, but my mother would often call me. Because the first 8 years I was making $12,000 a year or something. She's like, "Come home. I'll pay for you to go to law school. You can be a lawyer." I'm like, not doing it. So I didn't have a backup. I just was gonna make it work. Yeah,
that is cool.
And then here you are, right? That's probably good that you didn't have that.
I know it's a cliche thing to say and to go down that road too, but it's like most people without backup plans are the ones that succeed, right? If you put that safety net there when you're
gonna fail.
Yeah, when you're making $12,000 for 8 straight years, you're like, yeah, maybe I'll just check out and see what that safety net has going on.
Yeah.
All right. I feel like you've traveled a decent amount. That's my assumption right now. So what's your favorite place that you've traveled?
Sorrento, Italy was the best place I think I've been. Well, that or Koh Samui in Thailand. One of those 2 places. I love the water because I was a swimmer, and both of those places are right on the ocean and just beautiful, beautiful backdrops, awesome water that you could just, either one of those places was the best.
That's good. I've never really, to be honest, heard of either of those places, Sorrento and Koh Samui.
Yeah, Koh Samui. So
okay.
Koh Samui's in Thailand, and there's like these 2 islands right next to each other. So if you go to Bangkok and you take a bus like 2 hours south to sort of where like the water starts, there's kind of like I don't know if it's like a peninsula or what it is, but there's a couple islands there. There's probably more than a couple, but I went to one. It's like you don't even feel like you're on this planet. It's insane.
My girlfriend's brother lives in Thailand, and we just see pictures all the time.
It's crazy.
It looks amazing wherever they go.
It is amazing, yeah. And Italy, the Sorrento's right next to Pompeii, but it's on the ocean. It's just amazing.
Bam.
That is cool. I like Italy too. We're just talking the other day. The wife and I, we want to go back to Italy. We went to Venice and just loved it. I mean, I just really love Italy. It's food and
it's super
wine,
cool.
and the weather's decent, and the scenery is beautiful. So here we go. Another music question. If you go back in time to see any band live, what band would you see?
So this is going to sound really old, but I probably would have loved to see the Beatles.
Yeah.
But you
can't go wrong. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I do really like the Beatles, and Cody, I think I've told this story before. At the University of Iowa, they have a Beatles class, right?
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, what's this called, Cody? Do you remember what the name of the class is?
I know we were talking about it at one point. I don't know what it's
you know,
called,
you can get, it's like a 3-credit class that you can take, and it's
wow.
all about the history of the Beatles. And I had a lot of friends that took the class, and I got to the point where I was like, listen, I just want to
quit talking about the Beatles.
I just want to freaking listen to Abbey Road and not have to hear every single story about why this, and I'm a guy, I do really appreciate the nuances and stories behind songs and all that stuff too. So, but that kind of like watered down my love for the Beatles. Cody, do you have a band that you'd want to see?
I don't know. I don't have an answer off the top of my head, to be honest. I feel a little bit lame.
No, I think it would be. I don't really know if they would have been that great live. I don't know. Zeppelin is just cool to me.
Oh, Zeppelin would have been super bitchy. I mean, that's either one of those would be fantastic. Yeah.
What I appreciate about it,
Zeppelin probably would have been better because Zeppelin was a great live band. Where the Beatles didn't really. They did the early stuff, and and then I think the stuff that I like is the later stuff, and I don't even think they played that stuff live.
You said this earlier, like you can get behind a song if it's just a good song, right? Or you can not get behind it, right? But the thing, and I like all types of music, and I think that you can tell if a band or a singer-songwriter or whoever it is like has passion. So I like pretty much any genre as long as it's like the
it has to be believable. And
the
it has to
is,
like. You have to believe it. Like, I believe that guy. He's telling me the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they're not telling you the truth, you're like, this is bullshit. Yeah. Like, somebody wrote this song for this guy, and he's a pretty face. I don't give a shit. Exactly. It's got to be believable. That's what connects with me.
Yeah, you feel that it resonates.
For sure. And I think, too, what's cool about Zeppelin is, man, they have a lot of stuff that is, like, nowadays could almost be characterized as like almost borderline country music, right? Like some of the like twang, like
a lot of R&B kind of stuff too. But
I lost place. Where are we on our list?
Blues, but
I got it. Name one useful tool to have during a zombie apocalypse.
Screwdriver.
Screwdriver?
Yeah, you could just put it right in their eyeball. Bam!
Talking flathead or Phillips screwdriver?
Yeah. Oh wow, jeez.
No, that's funny. I was thinking about this too. You know what might be one of the most useful things to have in a zombie apocalypse is like a nice kick-ass pair of work boots, like a pair of like boots because you're probably
because you're not taking them off.
On your feet, you're kicking ass.
That's true.
Kicking ass.
Very true.
All right, and last one, Jason. What was the first ever job you had?
I worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken when I was 15 years old.
Kentucky Fried Chicken. So that was, I mean, this is, we've gone the whole show. I haven't made fun of you being older than me that much. So did you know the Colonel? Did you know?
No, the Colonel,
did he hire you?
I don't know. He had to go hang out with his nephew that day. I didn't know the Colonel.
No. I always give Jason shit about being older than me if you guys haven't.
That's just because he's jealous because I could squat more than he could.
I know. He's a strong mother. But Jason, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. We could have talked for a long time. The music stuff is always intriguing to me. I think a lot of people think it's pretty cool, probably what you do, and it's probably you've been doing it for 30 years. Maybe you don't always. I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Understand how cool it is too, but. It sounds like you still do appreciate what you get to do for a living. Sounds like you still make time for fitness, and you're probably better at me than golf now too. So you can make fun of me.
Yeah, I'm getting better. My handicap's a 9 now.
Yeah, you're definitely better than me. Definitely better than me. Well, cool, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you for having me.
And now, on with the show.
Yeah, we're just gonna light a fire, roast some marshmallows. I probably won't eat any marshmallows because I'm not into s'mores. I don't know if that's
Not in the s'mores.
no, no. I never have been. It's not my thing.
What don't you like about s'mores? Are we like the work that it goes into making a s'more, or the taste itself? Marshmallow? Are you not?
I'm not really a
marshmallow
graham
fan?
cracker guy. Is part of it.
Really? Nope. What about peanut butter and graham cracker? That was a staple for me growing up.
Peanut butter and graham cracker. No, I've never done that. Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, and I just don't have enough of a sweet tooth to want to do the work either. So then it's just kind of all like,
Yeah, you
just
don't
like,
really
I'd
have
rather
a
just
sweet-
watch the
yeah.
fire and whatever, and you can have your s'mores and whatnot. You know,
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm not a huge s'more fan, but if s'more ingredients are rolling around, I'm gonna work
partake.
myself into the rotation of s'more. There are many times at our house we'll light a fire in the backyard just to make s'mores because my wife really likes toasty marshmallows, and of course, so
Do you use a fire pit, or do you
So it's a
have
holiday.
just like, what are you using for that?
We have a fire pit.
Elevated, or is it
Yeah, we have a fire pit.
static, like in place? You know what I mean?
It's built out of stone, so we have so there's like stone pavers, so it's kind of in the ground. I dig it out, a few times a year because we burn a lot of crap in it. We got a lot of yard like sticks and stuff that I throw in there and burn, and cardboard from Amazon packages and whatnot.
Dude, like, I can't keep up with cardboard anymore. Like, we have
Yeah.
our recycling can is bigger than our trash can, right? For pickup, and it's full. Like, I have to make special trips still to the recycle center.
Really?
Yeah, I mean that's partly because like we get
To
gym
drop.
stuff,
Yeah,
just like with the
that's-
amount of
yeah.
packages, and it's probably true for a lot of people, just from Amazon, and a lot of times they're like oversized boxes. I'm like, why would I bought vitamins and they're like in this huge box? I'm like, and there's so much free space. I'm like,
No,
don't
I
think
agree.
this was useful, but just send me
Yeah.
the well, maybe not because I don't want to be tampering with my vitamins, but
But the seal would be on. Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I'm with you too. Oftentimes, I feel like I don't need a giant box for whatever it is I'm sending myself. In fact, like a lot of times when I buy something on Amazon, I try to like not just buy one thing. Like something will sit in my cart for a couple of days until I'm like, obviously, I'm going to think of something else that I quote unquote need, and so then I'll always make sure I try to order a few things at once. But yeah, we were rambling about. We got on this topic. It's Cody's birthday when we're recording this, so everybody can send Cody some love if they didn't on his birthday, because this will come out a few days after his birthday.
you know what? I don't want
Happy
to
belated
hear
birthday.
from you if you didn't tell me happy birthday on my birthday. Don't even bother.
Yeah, don't
Yeah,
even bother. Don't
don't
waste your time.
It's too late.
But you can wish him
next
a bad
year.
birthday.
Yeah, I mean that's fine.
Yeah.
Or just say hi. Don't even reference the birthday. Just be like, "What's up?" I'm like, "All right, nothing. What's going on with you?"
What's up?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
All right. So you have stumbled upon our closeout, our cool down question portion of the show. This is where we are. info@practicalwellnesscoach.com if you have a question for us and you want us to cover a topic. Today we have a topic that we're going to talk a little bit about, and somebody asked if we could just spend a little time talking about a few of the common myths in health and fitness, and with that, a couple of things came to mind. But first, I'm gonna swing it to you, Cody. What's one thing that kind of comes to mind when we're talking about just common myths, things that you hear about when it comes to the health and fitness, and whether that's industry or like specific when it comes to setting goals? What do you got?
Yeah, I'm thinking like the first one that comes to mind, and I don't know if I just because I had a recent exposure to this. So I teach a stress management class. And we talk about exercise and how that can be a powerful tool in that realm. And so it kind of devolves into like some goals and things like that and what they want. And I see the word, or I have been seeing the word toning a lot recently. And that one sticks out to me. And when we first started talking about like, what are we going to do for a cool down and getting this question and so on and so forth, like that was the first thing I thought of. And you can't really tone a muscle, right? And I'll tell you this too. I don't mind the phrase necessarily as long as we understand what we're saying. Because I feel like people confuse toning with, or maybe creating a separate lane for that, like in and of itself. Like, what do you think of when you think of toning? That word.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when I think, this is me, and it's maybe because I have a similar frustration
Yeah.
with that word. Like when I think of toning, is somebody. This would happen a lot. In previous episodes, we talked about like I would sit down and run fitness assessments. We talked about people's goals, and like everybody was like, "Oh, I just want to
Tone up
get
a
a
little
little bit more tone," and I think that was maybe just. I don't know. This might be a judgmental thing too, from my standpoint. I think that people use that phrase when maybe they don't want to admit that they want to lose weight.
I would maybe,
So
it's kind of a gentler word or a gentler phrase than maybe I
yeah,
want to
right,
lose
less
weight.
polarizing.
Yeah.
And I, so for me, whenever I hear that, I'm a little bit frustrated. Not with anything other than the fact that it's just, I think, one of the stigmas in the fitness industry in general, where people are thrown this word at them and then they regurgitate it, and it's we've probably seen some stupid infomercial and it's like, we're gonna this weight loss program or this device or this apparatus or this nutrition is going to target belly fat and target flabby arms.
It's kind of like marketing, right?
Like and we're you and I know that that's not really possible, right? We're not there. We're not able to target your flabby arms or your love handles,
right,
with anything, right? And that's a real
and
common
these like
myth.
two things, so like spot reduction in terms of fat and toning kind of intersect, right, to this idea of, hey, really what we have control over is increasing the size of our muscle, right? So hypertrophy and losing body fat, and that gets you to the air quotes toned state that you want to be in, right? So you're putting on lean muscle tissue and decreasing fat tissue, right? Or fatty deposits, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, we can't dictate like where our
No.
bodies decide to oxidize fat.
You could make that muscle bigger,
It's impossible, yeah.
right? And then obviously get leaner, right? Or decrease our body fat percentage, and that would then get you maybe to that state that you want to be in. But you can't, like you mentioned arms earlier, you can't do a bunch of bicep curls and then expect that, that adipose tissue to just disappear, right? Now you're strengthening the muscle and the muscle can get bigger, but just doing that by itself won't, just make that fat disappear, right?
Yeah, we can't like fat doesn't turn into muscle. And that's, I don't know if that's a separate topic or a similar topic. Like when people are talking about, like, we've kind of reached this tangent now of like spot reducing or spot toning, like we kind of started with. But, like you said, bicep curls or tricep press downs are not going to decrease the amount of fat like anybody has on the back of their arms, much like doing crunches is going to decrease any fat on anyone's stomach. Like, they're great exercises and they're great for burning calories and getting stronger, and we're increasing lean muscle, and these are all awesome things to be doing. But it is a solid misconception. I think people are like, I'm going to do a bunch of sit-ups to get rid of my little pooch or whatever, whatever it might be, right? Like, and it is a real, and I understand it. Like, I do. Like, I remember I thought the same thing actually for quite some time, but we just, I don't know. For me, that's probably one of the biggest.
Yeah, it's probably the one I see the most, often, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
And I think a lot of it, I mean, we probably bang this drum a lot, but a lot of it comes to the genetics. People carry their weight in different areas, right? And so, it just is what it is. Like,
men usually hold more adipose tissue through their, trunk, like bellies, right? And then women, I think, tend to, and there's always rules or exceptions to the rule, rather, women tend to carry more weight around their hips, as another example, right? So there's a little bit of a difference there, but yeah,
for sure,
genetics has a large role to play in this, and you can look at your own kind of family and kind of start to create that picture for yourself. But yeah, absolutely. What's some other, did you have any other kind of things that stuck out to you in terms of like fads or misconceptions?
Yeah. we kind of were, you were just kind of comparing some male and female, like, examples. And we talked about this again on a little bit on a previous podcast. I think, lifting is going to make me bulky or inflexible, maybe even, right? And those are probably even two separate common myths, but I think they somewhat play hand in hand. And especially with females, you might have a woman, and if that's her goal and she doesn't want to get bulky, that's fine. But I think that being fearful of resistance training is something that is definitely.
Yeah, I've ran into that myself with people, and I don't think this one is as common, at least in my bubble. But I've definitely run into it, and it's maybe a hard one to overcome because of, perceptions too. And we do have to, again, identify that in the context, genetics certainly play a role. Like there is going to be, much like, and you and I experienced this, and even you and I compared to each other, we have very different body types and we hold on to muscle differently, right? I'm generally a smaller guy. I'm probably not going to be into or reach that bulky state that someone might identify with, as being bulky. It's just going to be the nature of it, no matter what I do for the most part. But that plays a role in, gender differences as well. Women typically don't have enough testosterone to maybe reach that bulky state that they might see like outliers get to, or B, those outliers are also using maybe some performance enhancing drugs as well, right? That perpetuate that too. Yeah. So like that's the other thing we have to understand. Again, kind of, most people aren't going to have, or most females aren't going to have enough testosterone to maybe achieve that like really, really muscular look outside of really high level dedication, right? Casually going to the gym or, and lifting weights or going to CrossFit classes isn't probably going to reach you to that point.
Yeah, and you touched on, I think, kind of the three biggest things, right? And I think you kind of hit them all. Like genetics, again, we hate to keep banging that drum, but your genetics are going to play a large role in whether you're going to put on muscle or whether you're going to be naturally lean. Yeah. Genetics are weird too because genetics are an easy thing to kind of see, but there's such a small role at times too, right? Like people are going to have genetically predisposed abilities to problem solve or learn or do math or whatever, right? And those are harder to see. But when you're talking about genetics, your mind often goes to that guy's tall or that guy is short or that guy is strong or that guy, like whatever it might be. And so genetics is one. Gender,
I would say too, it's important too that you can train like and still get better regardless of your genetics. Sure. We're just saying that some people might have a different ceiling or a different adaptability or rate of adaptation compared to someone else.
Yeah. Yeah, the rate of adaptation is a good way to put it, right? Where it might take you a little bit longer, but it still is a feasible goal. And it's still, if putting on muscle mass is something that you're interested, it's, I think we've kind of talked so far about people's inabilities to kind of put on bulk because that's kind of what the myth that we started with. But it might go the other way too. People, both ways, whether I want to add mass or
even just our shape of our body. Or another example would be like my hand's only this big. I'd be surprised if my hand gets bigger, right? As I ate. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm. And then, genetics is kind of, when we're talking about the physical genetics, it's mostly kind of manifested in like muscle types, right? People with a fast twitch muscle fiber are more likely to be able to. Yeah, I'm more likely to, and more likely to acquire larger muscles more easily, right? And you talked about the type 2, like slow twitch.
We usually are predisposed with those more of one than the other.
Mm-hmm. But then the genetic thing that those individuals might have on their side, on their pro list, might be their ability to train volume, right, and their ability to work harder, work longer, and be more effective. And it just depends on. I think there's a reason why all track sprinters look very similar and very jacked out of their mind, right? Like sprinters are fast twitch muscle fibers distance, and they put on muscle easy.
Yeah, they're very explosive, and especially at higher levels, what's the word I'm looking? Like people get weeded out, right? So when you look at a high level athlete, like whether it's a professional athlete, like it's a football player or like track athletes at a high level, Olympic levels, they're definitely we're not disregarding any hard work here, right? Because you have to have that as well. You can't just be lazy and get to the Olympics. But you and I can work as hard. But I'm not. I just don't have that, genetic makeup. Right?
Yeah,
I don't have
And
that
I think,
predisposition.
Yeah, and one of the quick points I was going to make too is, let's say you watch the 100-meter sprint at the Olympics. They all look like bodybuilders. They all look like bodybuilders. They have boulders for shoulders. But you know what? I'd be willing to bet none of them train as bodybuilders. None of them, right? Like they might do some like prehab, some certain like body build, like classic movements, some strength training, but I bet they're not doing like consistent like bro splits where like today I'm gonna do buys and tries. You know what I mean? Like that's unlikely. Not what their sport is, and that's not.
It'd be unlikely. I'm sure they do something, but I'm sure they lift weights.
And I'm not saying they don't strength training. I'm just saying that they probably don't do specific like bro splits like we're accustomed to like bodybuilding. But the correlation then again with the genetics is my point was they are all proven to be fast twitch muscle fiber athletes, and fast twitch muscle fiber athletes are going to put on muscle easier. So they don't have to do the bro splits that they look like.
If you did like a muscle biopsy, you'd probably see between like the groupings of, versus a 100-meter sprinter versus like a marathon runner, you're going to see a lot of different fiber type makeup, within that as well. And I've seen a few things. I'm not an authority on this by any means, but I've seen a few things where your muscle fiber type can change, but I think it's pretty rare. And don't quote me on that, but it'd be something that I'll have to look into a different time.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you have it. There are two common myths that just right off the top of our heads that are, I think, a bit ridiculous. And we don't want to make them sound ridiculous and hurt anybody's feelings in a way too, because to be honest with you, I probably was right there with you. And at one point I thought the same thing. So we have, the first one we talked about, like target fat loss, love handles, flabby arms, whatever they are, or maybe even the term being toned, getting toned, like just kind of dive a little bit deeper if you're trying to establish a goal.
Or even take ownership if you're working around maybe the true intent, like take ownership of that a little bit more.
For sure. Yep. Instead of getting toned, it's like I'd like to
lose 10 pounds. I'd like to get a little stronger, whatever.
Yeah, and then leaner might. Yeah, and then the second one we talked about too was, lifting making you bulky or inflexible, and we didn't touch on it, but it's also that much on inflexible. Yeah,
it's right a little long, so maybe we'll put a pin on that one.
Yeah, the one quick point I would say, if you're prioritizing quality movement, right, full range of movement to your extent, you're not going to get more inflexible. In fact, one of the best things I think for my flexibility has been adding resistance training at full range of motions, and I have moved as better
quality movement under load. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there you have it. Thanks for the question. If you guys have any more questions, like I said, you can send it to info@practicalwellnesscoach.com. Thanks again to Jason for coming on the podcast, and we'll catch you next time.